Chapter 20. The maid who opened the door at Mrs. Luxmore's South Kensington address looked at Hercule Poirot with deep disapproval. She showed no disposition to admit him into the house. Unperturbed, Poirot gave her a card. "Give that to your mistress. I think she will see me." It was one of his more ostentatious cards. The words "Private Detective" were printed in one corner. He had them especially engraved for the purpose of obtaining interviews with the so-called fair sex. Nearly every woman, whether conscious of innocence or not, was anxious to have a look at a private detective and find out what he wanted. Left anonymously on the mat, Poirot studied the door knocker with intense disgust as its unpolished condition. "Ah, for some brasso and a rag," he murmured to himself. Breathing excitedly, the maid returned and Poirot was bidden to enter. He was shown into a room on the first floor, a rather dark, smelling of stale flowers and empty trash trays. There were large quantities of silk cushions of exotic colors, all in need of cleaning. The walls were emerald green and the ceiling was of pseudo-copper. A tall, rather handsome woman was standing by the mantelpiece. She came forward and spoke in a deep, husky voice. "Monsieur Hercule Poirot." Poirot bowed. His manner was not quite his own. He was not only foreign, but ornately foreign. His gestures were positively baroque. Faintly, very faintly. It was the manner of late Mr. Shatana. "What did you want to see me about?" Again Poirot bowed. "If I might be seated, it will take a little time." She waved at him impatiently to a chair and sat down herself on the edge of a sofa. "Yes, well? It is, madame, that I make the enquiries, the private enquiries, you understand?" The more deliberate his approach, the greater her eagerness. "Yes, yes, I make enquiries into the death of late Professor Luxmore." She gave a gasp. Her dismay was evident. "But why? What do you mean? What has it got to do with you?" Poirot watched her carefully before proceeding. "There is, you comprehend, a book being written, a life of your eminent husband. The writer naturally is anxious to get all his facts exact, as to your husband's death, for instance." She broke in at once. "My husband died of fever on the Amazon." Poirot leaned back in his chair. Slowly, very slowly, he shook his head to and fro, a maddening, monotonous motion. Madame, he protested. "But I know. I was there at the time." "Ah, yes, certainly you were there. Yes, my information says so." She cried out. "What information?" Eyeing her closely, Poirot said, "Information supplied to me by the late Mr. Shatana." She shrank back as though flicked with a whip. "Shatana?" she muttered. "A man," said Poirot, "possessed of vast stores of knowledge. A remarkable man. That man knew many secrets." "I suppose he did," she murmured, passing a tongue over her dry lips. Poirot leaned forward. He achieved a little tap on her knee. "He knew, for instance, that your husband did not die of fever." She stared at him. Her eyes looked wild and desperate. She leaned back and watched the effect of his words. She pulled herself together with an effort. I don't know what you mean." It was very unconvincingly said. "Madame," said Poirot, "I will come out into the open. I will place my cards upon the table. Your husband did not die of fever. He died of a bullet." "Oh," she cried. She covered her face with her hands. She rocked herself to and fro. She was in terrible distress, but somewhere, in some remote fibre of her being, she was enjoying her own emotions. Poirot was quite sure of that. "And therefore," said Poirot in a matter-of-fact tone, "you might just as well tell me the whole story." She uncovered her face and said, "It wasn't in the least what you think." Again Poirot leaned forward. Again he tapped her knee. "You misunderstand me. You misunderstand me utterly," he said. "I know very well it was not you who shot him. It was Major Despard. But you were the cause." I don't know. I suppose I was. It was all too terrible. This is a story of fatality that pursues me." "Ah, how true that is," cried Poirot. "How often have I not seen it?" There are some women like that. Wherever they go, tragedies follow in their wake. It is not their fault these things happen in spite of themselves. Mrs. Luxmore drew a deep breath. You understand. I see you understand. It all happened so naturally. You traveled together into the interior, did you not? Yes, my husband was writing a book on various rare plants. Major Despard was introduced to us as a man who knew the conditions that would arrange the necessary expedition. My husband liked him very much. We started. There was a pause. Poirot allowed it to continue for about a minute and a half and then murmured as though to himself, Yes, one can picture it. The winding river, the tropical night, the hum of the insects, the strong soldierly man, a beautiful woman. Mrs. Luxmore sighed. My husband was, of course, years older than I was, and married as a mere child before I knew what I was doing. Poirot shook his head sadly. I know. How often does that not occur? Neither of us would admit what was happening, went on Miss Luxmore. John Despard never said anything. He was the soul of honor. But a woman always knows, prompted Poirot. How right you are. Yes, a woman knows. But I never showed him that I knew. We were Major Despard and Mrs. Luxmore to each other, right up to the end. We both were determined to play the game. She was silent, lost in admiration of that noble attitude. True, murmured Poirot, one must play the cricket. As one of your poets so finely says, could not love thee, dear, so much loved I not cricket more. Honor, corrected Luxmore with a slight frown. Of course. Honor, loved I not honor more. Those words might have been written for us, murmured Mrs. Luxmore. No matter what it cost us, we were both determined never to say the fatal word. And then, the ghastly night. Yes, I suppose they must have quarrelled, John and Timothy. I came out of my tent. Then, Mrs. Luxmore's eyes were wide and dark. She was seeing the scene as though it was being repeated in front of her. I came out of my tent, she repeated. John and Timothy were... Oh, she shuddered. I can't remember it all clearly. I came between them. I said, No, it isn't true. Timothy wouldn't listen. He was threatening John. John had to fire in self-defense. Ah. She gave a cry and covered her face with her hands. He was dead, stone dead, shot to the heart. A terrible moment for you, madame. I shall never forget it. John was noble. He was all for giving himself up. I refused to hear it. We argued all night. For my sake, I kept saying. He saw that in the end. Naturally, he couldn't let me suffer. The awful publicity. Think of the headlines. 2 men and a woman in the jungle. Primeval passions. I put it all to John. In the end, he gave in. The boys had seen and heard nothing. Timothy had been having a bout of fever. We said he died of it. We buried him beside the Amazon. Deep tortured sigh took her form. And then back to civilization and to part forever. Was it necessary, madame? Timothy dead stood between us just as Timothy alive had done. More so. We said goodbye to each other forever. I met John Despard sometimes out in the world. We smile, we speak politely. No one would ever guess that there was anything between us, but in his eyes, and he in mine, that we will never forget. There was a long pause. Poirot paid tribute to the curtain by not breaking the silence. Mrs. Luxmore took out a vanity case and powdered her nose. The spell was broken. What a tragedy, said Poirot, but in a more day-to-day tone. You can see, Monsieur Poirot, said Mrs. Luxmore, that the truth must never be told. It would be painful. It would be impossible. This friend, this writer, surely he would not wish to blight the life of a perfectly innocent woman. Or even hang a perfectly innocent man, murmured Poirot. You see it like that? I'm so glad. He was innocent. A crime passionnel is not really a crime. And in any case, it was in his self-defense. He had to shoot. So you do understand, Monsieur Poirot, that the world must continue to think Timothy died of fever? Poirot murmured. Writers are sometimes curiously callous. Your friend is a woman hater. He wants to make us suffer, but you must not allow that. You should not allow it. If necessary, I shall take the blame on myself. I shall say I shot Timothy. She had risen to her feet. Her head was thrown back. Poirot also rose. Madame, he said as he took her hand, such splendid self-sacrifice is unnecessary. I will do my best so that the true facts shall never be known. A sweet womanly smile stole over Mrs. Luxmore's face. She raised her hand slightly so that Poirot, whether he had meant to do so or not, was forced to kiss it. An unhappy woman thanks you, Monsieur Poirot, she said. It was the last word of a persecuted queen to a favoured courtier, clearly an exit line. Poirot duly made his exit. Once out in the street, he drew a long breath of fresh air. Chapter 21. What a woman, murmured Hercule Poirot. How Despard must have suffered. What a terrible journey. Suddenly he began to laugh. He was now walking along the Brompton Road. He paused, took out his watch, and made a calculation. But yes, I have the time. In any case, to wait will do him no harm. I can now attend to the other little matter. What was it my friend in the English police force used to sing? How many years? 40 years ago? Little piece of sugar for the bird. Humming a long forgotten tune, Hercule Poirot entered a sumptuous-looking shop mainly devoted to the clothing and general embellishment of women, and made his way to the stocking counter. Selecting a sympathetic-looking and not too haughty damsel, he made known his requirements. Silk stockings, oh yes, we have a very nice line here. Guaranteed pure silk. Poirot waved them anyway. He waxed eloquent once more. French silk stockings, with the duty, you know, they are very expensive. A fresh lot of boxes was produced. Very nice, mademoiselle, but I had something of a finer texture and still in mind. These are 100 gauge, of course. We have some extra fine, but I'm afraid they come out at about 35 shillings a pair. And no durability, of course, just like cobwebs. Siesta extamo. I prolonged the absence of the young lady this time. She returned at last. I'm afraid they are actually 37 and 6 pence a pair, but beautiful, aren't they? She slid them tenderly from a gauzy envelope. The finest, gauziest wisp of stockings. This is exactly lovely, aren't they? How many pairs, sir? I want, 19 pairs. The young lady nearly fell down behind the counter, but long training in scornfulness just kept her erect. There would be a reduction on 2 dozen, she said faintly. No, I want 19 pairs of slightly different colors, please. The girl sorted them out obediently, packed them up, and made out the bill. As Poirot departed with his purchase, the next girl at the counter said, Wonder who the lucky girl is. Must be a nasty old man. Oh well, she seems to be stringing him along good and proper, stockings at 37 and 6 pence indeed. Unaware of the low estimate formed by the young ladies of Messrs. Harvey Robinson's upon his character, Poirot was strutting homewards. He had been in for about half an hour when he heard the doorbell ring. A few minutes later, Major Despard entered the room. He was obviously keeping his temper with difficulty. What the devil did you want to go and see Mrs. Luxmore for? He asked. Poirot smiled. I wished, you see, for the true story of Professor Luxmore's death. True story? Do you think a woman's capable of telling the truth about anything? Demanded Despard wrathfully. Oh, bien, I wonder now and then, admitted Poirot. I should think you did. That woman's crazy. Poirot demurred. Not at all. She's a romantic woman, that's all. Romantic be damned. She's an out-and-out liar. I sometimes think she even believes her own lies. It is quite possible, said Poirot. She's an appalling woman. I had the hell of a time with her out there. That also I can well believe. Despard sat down abruptly. Look here, Monsieur Poirot, I'm going to tell you the truth. You mean you're going to give me your version of the story? My version will be the truth. Poirot did not reply. Despard went on dryly. I quite realize that I can't claim any merit in coming out with this now. I'm telling the truth because it's the only thing to be done at this stage. Whether you believe me or not is up to you. I have no kind of proof that my story is the correct one. He paused for a minute and then began. I arranged the trip for the Luxmores. He was a nice old boy, quite batty about mosses and plants and things. She was, what you've no doubt observed her to be. That trip was a nightmare. I didn't care a damn for that woman, rather disliked her, as a matter of fact. She was the intense, soulful kind that always makes me feel prickly with embarrassment. Everything went all right for the first fortnight, then we all had to go fever. She and I had it slightly. Old Luxmore was pretty bad. One night, now you've got to listen to this carefully, I was sitting outside my tent. Suddenly I saw Luxmore in the distance staggering off into a bush by the river. He was absolutely delirious and quite unconscious of what he was doing. In another minute he would have been in the river, and that particular spot would have been in the end of him. No chance of rescue. There wasn't time to rush after him. Only one thing to be done. My rifle was beside me as usual. I snatched it up. I'm a pretty accurate shot. I was quite sure I could bring down the old boy and get him in the leg. And then, just as I fired, that idiotic fool of a woman flung herself from somewhere upon me, yelping, "Don't shoot! For God's sake, don't shoot!" She caught my arm and jerked it ever so slightly, that just as the rifle went off, the result that the bullet got him in the back and killed him dead. I can tell you that was a pretty ghastly moment, and that damn fool of a woman didn't understand what she'd done. Instead of realizing that she'd been responsible for her husband's death, she firmly believed that I'd been trying to shoot the old boy in cold blood for love of her. If you please, we had the devil of a scene, she insisting that we should say he died of fever. I was sorry for her, especially as I saw she didn't realize what she'd done, but she'd have to realize if the truth came out. And then her complete certainty that I was head over heels in love with her gave me a bit of joy. I was going to be a pretty kettle of fish if she went out giving that out. In the end, I agreed to do what she wanted, partly for the sake of peace, I admit. After all, it didn't seem to matter much, fever or accident, and I didn't want to drag a woman through a lot of unpleasantness, even if she was a damned fool. I gave it out the next day that the professor was dead of fever and we buried him. The bearers knew the truth, of course, but they were all devoted to me, and I knew that what I said I'd swear to if need be. We buried poor old Luxmore and got back to civilization. Since then, I've spent a good deal of time dodging the woman. He paused and then said quietly, "That's my story, Monsieur Poirot." Poirot said slowly, "It was to that incident that Mr. Shaitana referred, or so you thought at dinner that night." Despard nodded. He must have heard it from Mrs. Luxmore. Easy enough to get a story out of her. That sort of thing would have amused him. It might have been a dangerous story to you in the hands of a man like Shaitana. Despard shrugged his shoulders. I wasn't afraid of Shaitana. Poirot didn't answer. Despard said quietly, "That again you have to take my word for. It's true enough, I suppose, that I had a kind of motive for Shaitana's death. Well, the truth's out now, take it or leave it." Poirot held out a hand. "I will take it, Major Despard. I have no doubt at all the things in South America happened exactly as you have described." Despard's face lit up. "Thanks," he said laconically, and he clasped Poirot's hand warmly. Chapter 22. Superintendent Battle was in the police station of Combes. Inspector Harper, rather red in the face, talked in a slow, pleasing Devonshire voice. "That's how it was, sir. Seemed as all right. Rain. Doctor was satisfied. Everyone was satisfied. Why not? Just give me the facts about the two bottles again. I want to get it quite clear." "Syrup of figs. That's what the bottle was. She took it regular, it seems. Then there was this hat paint she'd been using, or rather the young lady, her companion, had been using for her, brightening up a garden hat. There was a good deal left over and the bottle broke, and Mrs. Benson herself said, 'Put it in that old bottle, the syrup of figs bottle.' That's all right. The servants heard her. The young lady Miss Meredith and the housemaid and the parlour maid, they all agree on that. The paint was put into the old syrup of figs bottle and was put on the top shelf in the bathroom with other odds and ends. Not relabeled? No, careless of course, the coroner commented on that. Go on. On this particular night, the deceased went into the bathroom, took down a syrup of figs bottle, poured herself out a good dose, and drank it. Realized what she'd done, and they sent off at once for the doctor. He was out on a case, and it was some time before they could get at him. They did all they could, but she died. She herself believed it to be an accident. Oh, yes, everyone thought so. It seemed clear the bottles must have gotten mixed up somehow. It was suggested the housemaid did it when she dusted, but she swears she didn't. Superintendent Battle was silent, thinking, such an easy business, a bottle taken down from an upper shelf put in place of the other. So difficult to trace a mistake like that to its source. Handle it with gloves, possibly, and anyways, the last prints would be those of Mrs. Benson herself. Yes, so easy, so simple, but all the same, murder. Perfect crime. But why? That still puzzled him. Why? This young lady companion, this Miss Meredith, she didn't come into money at Mrs. Benson's death, he asked. Inspector Harper shook his head. No, she'd only been there about 6 weeks. Difficult place, I should imagine. Young ladies didn't stay long, as a rule. Battle was still puzzled. Young ladies didn't stay long. A difficult woman, evidently. But if Anne Meredith had been unhappy, she could have left as her predecessors had done. No need to kill unless it were sheer unreasoning and vindictiveness. He shook his head. That suggestion did not ring true. Who did get Mrs. Benson's money? He couldn't say, sir. Nephews and nieces, I believe. But it wouldn't be very much, not when it was divided up. As I heard as how much most of her income was from these annuities. Nothing there then. But Mrs. Benson had died, and Anne Meredith had not told him that she had been at Combes. It was all profoundly unsatisfactory. He made diligent and painstaking inquiries. The doctor was quite clear and empathetic. No reason to believe it was anything but an accident. Miss couldn't remember her name. Nice girl, but rather helpless. She had been very upset and distressed. There was a vicar. He remembered Mrs. Benson's last companion, a nice, modest-looking girl. Always came to church with Mrs. Benson. Mrs. Benson had been not difficult, but a trifle severe towards young people. She was the rigid type of Christian. Battle tried one or two other people, but learned nothing of value. Anne Meredith was hardly remembered. She had lived among them a few months. That was all, and her personality was not sufficiently vivid to make a lasting impression. Nice little thing she seemed to be, except a description. Mrs. Benson loomed out a little more clearly. Self-righteous grandeur of woman, working her companions hard and changing her servants often. A disagreeable woman, but that was all. Nevertheless, Superintendent Battle left Devonshire under the firm impression that, for some reason unknown, Anne Meredith had deliberately murdered her employer.
Hello everyone, this is Suryanshu. If you enjoyed this audiobook, do consider subscribing to the channel and dropping a like. It really helps. And do turn on the notification to get notified when I post new videos. So stay tuned for the next audiobook, and goodbye until next time.